Hello and welcome. I'm Kate.
And I'm Emily, and this is Beyond the Neurotype,
A podcast that explores what it's like to be human affirming, regardless of labels, considerate of every person's individual needs, and allowing us to, ideally, understand what is behind every individual's actions, choices, and needs.
We do this with curiosity and love as we explore these individual and unique experiences that are rich with challenges, growth, and grace.
I'm Kate, a mental health social worker and synergetic play therapist. I'm the co-founder of the Village Therapy Hub. I'm a mum to 2 adolescents, and I love understanding and exploring what is happening beneath the surface for children and adults, and what behaviours are communicating to us. But let me keep it real. Much like yours, my life is a roller coaster. So I also understand the complexities of being a carer, the challenges of the day-to-day, and I won't pretend it's all enjoyable.
I'm Emily, a neurodivergent mum to a beautiful autistic girl and wife to a wonderful autistic man. I'm passionate about celebrating neurodiversity and creating a community where people are seen, held, and loved for who they truly are. It is my hope that as you listen to the stories of our beautiful guests, you feel inspired, validated, and supported in your journey.
This podcast is recorded on the land of the Dja Dja Wurrung people. We offer our heartfelt gratitude to the traditional custodians and elders, past, present, and emerging, for continued opportunities to learn, reflect, and grow. Today for you, we have Helen. Helen, among many things, is the founder and director of the Family Systems Hub in Melbourne, a service that provides support and education to children, families, and clinicians, with the overarching belief that it is through working with the family system that we can heal and support the individual. Helen's offerings, and those provided within her clinic, focus on the importance of coming back to connecting with self, looking within for the answers, and considering the impact of our family's intergenerational experiences on who we are today. I have loved watching Helen shift and change the flow of her business over the years to constantly align with where she's at and what feels most important for her to be offering to the world. Thank you for joining us, my dear friend Helen.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Emily.
So I mentioned in my intro, Helen, that you have changed the flow of your business over the years. You made a significant adjustment to your business model, I think about a year ago.
Yeah.
I'd love to start by exploring what led you to that change being made. I know it wasn't an easy thing to do. So what led you to wanting to do that?
Okay, there are many factors. I'll take you back to sort of when it started to kind of percolate, really. It was in 2022, and I had been engaged in supervision with one of my mentors, Millie Samianto, who was also a synergetic play therapist, but also was studying a family systemic approach called Family Constellations. And she was bringing a lot of that family systemic lens into our work. And I was finding myself grappling with the business at the time. We were known for our play therapy work. We were known for what we do with children. Yes, we supported parents. But I was starting to feel in my own self, I don't know, a little bit like I was not so fulfilled in the work that I was doing. The work that I was doing, I found myself having parents coming into the consult room, and they had quite significant childhood trauma, and that was impacting their relationship with their children. And I could see that the play therapy, whilst it's an amazing intervention, I found myself wanting to really deepen my work with the parents. And that then opened up opportunities for parents to do more inner work with me. And I saw that my business could actually expand into this and be able to provide a more sustainable change by actually looking at how we can understand some of these behaviors and symptoms that kids are presenting with. But it meant then I had to relook at what my team, what their background was. And majority of my team were trained in child-centered play therapy, and they preferred working with with the children. So I knew that that was going to be a big pivot, but I also knew that I couldn't not just work with the children. So as I was doing more of my own inner work, I was finding that this was really critical in not only shaping my relationship with my daughter at the time, but I knew that this was going to be more sustainable in the changes we wanted for our parents if we worked with them. That's a very long-winded answer.
That's a beautiful answer. And do you think, because I have experienced some of the work that you offer, particularly the Family Constellations modality, and do you think that it's through truly experiencing it yourself that you start to see the power that it has, and therefore the drive to want to allow others to experience that as well?
Absolutely. No matter how many times we have had the parent in the consult room talking about how, exploring their own wounding or their own triggers, it's very frightening to go to that space. It's really vulnerable to want to consider that, is there any aspects of myself, that is impacting my child, even though every parent wants to have changes in their relationship. They want the best for their child. But for them to go there is really scary. And so I feel that as a parent or any person, if you can find, if you can navigate this journey that is slow but safe with someone, you will start to realize actually there's so much gifts in our own working, right? And when we can experience that, then we're more open to doing more work. Yeah. So even though like Family Constellations is a healing modality, but you can mention how amazing it is, how transformative it is, but unless you experience it yourself, unless you have a personal experience, you're not going to go down that path.
I'm really curious about family constellations. That's not something I'm overly familiar with, and Kate's mentioned it to me before. But yeah, I'm really curious what that looks like and what that entails.
Yeah. So Family Constellations is a therapeutic tool that was founded by Bert Hellinger, and he was a psychotherapist himself, and he realized, and he was also actually a missionary for many, many years. And he realized that many of our experiences are interconnected. They're not just singular. And there are certain principles that help the functioning of a family system to be balanced and for love to flow in a family system. And if those three principles works around making sure that everyone in the system is belonging to one another, that no one's excluded. There's also an idea around that we follow the positioning in the family from oldest to youngest. And then there's also this idea around that in a family, there is a give and a take. And it's usually the adult that gives and the child that receives. And what he talked about was that when those orders are they're not being followed, that there's a disruption in those orders in relationship, you start to see symptoms, symptoms in the relationship. And they can carry through generations. And so this approach is about tapping into what is showing up in the dynamics in a family system, and understanding that those dynamics actually have a connection to the past. So our past ancestors who weren't able to resolve or address the issue at the time. So it gets repeated into our generation until someone in the system starts to recognize that, oh, maybe these symptoms that I've been carrying, or maybe this feeling that I don't belong here is actually connected to someone else in the family system, not just myself, if that makes sense. So,
like how we talk about the idea that, well, what I always think is, you know, how we say, gosh, I keep having this same experience. Like usually we notice the negative ones. So this challenging experience keeps happening to me over and over and over again. Oh
yeah,
gosh, I must have to learn something about this is kind of where we eventually get to.
yeah,
And like, oh God, I just need to figure out what the lesson is and then it will stop happening to me. But the family constellation kind of looks at that at a bigger perspective, in that maybe the lesson isn't for me. Maybe the
yeah,
lesson was for my grandma,
yeah,
or maybe, you know, I'm experiencing this over and over again because it's me that holds the capacity to change it when my dad couldn't.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing.
It can be grandparents. It can be you can be a parent that had many miscarriages, and then you have a child, and then that child grows up, and they can't help but feel an immense sorrow within themselves, and they don't know why they carry this sorrow, and they come to a family constellation that can be in a group session. You can do family constellation one-to-one or in a group session, and it's generally you generally have representatives within a circle who will become certain members of the family, and you start to tap into what they call is the field of the energy of what and they can't explain why it happens, but it's just, as you think about us as humans, we're energetic in nature. We feel each other. We can sense what someone else is feeling, and this is no different. But this is across time, and those representatives who become a representative of the mother, the father, the grandparent, you actually start to see what those dynamics were and what was going on at the time that actually created those blocks, and then you get to find a resolution around that. It's very powerful. It's very powerful, and again, it's one of those experiences where you need to experience it yourself.
There is a show though, isn't there? There's a
Oh yes,
show on Netflix.
yep.
What's it called?
Another self.
And it
Another self.
does a really wonderful job of showing what family constellations look like. I actually watched that before I ever went to a family constellation so that I
Uh-huh.
could get a sense of what
Yes.
what that would look like in a group dynamic. I had experienced family constellation work one-on-one,
Mm,
which is, felt far less intimidating.
mm,
But watching that show allowed me to see what it would look like if there was more people involved.
mm. I think one of the things about this approach that I have found most profound for me, and I've done a lot of different work, inner child work, gestalt work, parts work, all of that, and they all serve, and I trust that the time when I did mine, at the time I carried a story that my mother didn't love me, and that story perhaps encouraged the distance between me and her, even as an adult. And I had already created this story around maybe why she hadn't loved me. She was busy, and there was some compassion around and understanding for her, but it's still that deep pain, that ache in my beingness about that I didn't perceive my mum loved me. Um, and in family constellations, they talk about the systemic implications when you have wounding with your primary caregiver being your mother, or with your father, that does have major effects in terms of your own relationship as an adult, and your career, your ability to seek and obtain success and purpose. All of that, it has some effect. And I remember when I did my first constellation group, and Kate, you were in that group, I think. You may have been in that group session.
Yes, I was.
Many years ago. I don't remember a lot of it, but the thing that stood out for me, because I remember I came to that seeking a solution, and the solution was around wanting to attract or wanting to feel I was worthy of abundance in my life. Because at the time, my business wasn't going very well. No matter what I was putting energy in, it just didn't, we were heavily in debt. It was so stressful. And I thought about my lineage. And on my dad's side, there were 6 brothers, and they all had their own businesses. And many of them didn't work out. They had there was bankruptcy, all of that. And I wondered whether I was carrying that. And I was like, I don't want to carry that anymore. I want to be able to feel that I can move forward with this business with myself. And obviously, my priority was around being of service through my business. But at the time in that group session that was constellated, my mum, the person that represented my mum, just had eyes on me throughout the whole session. And I could see my response to her, the person that represented me, was I didn't want to be near my mum. I felt very cold. But my mum was looking at me and what came out of that was that for her, she only had eyes on me. That she did show that her love for me, but was constrained by what was going on in the system at the time. And that in of itself shifted so much about how I viewed my mum. The next day when I saw her, I just had this softening in me. And I gave her a hug. And my mum historically is someone that when you give a hug, she's like an iron board, like she just stiffens. So she feels very awkward and uncomfortable. And I would probably respond to that. But this time I just embraced her and I felt like a softening in her. And that to me was what I needed from that experience. Like that really shifted the way I viewed her. Yeah, that still really affects me even when I talk about that.
So powerful.
And I'm sure that people, when they hear this and have no context of family constellations, would just think, what? Like, that's so strange. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I know when I talk to people about it, there's often a lot of conversation that has to go into like, okay, I get that this is really weird and not anything you've experienced before.
Yeah.
And it's a whole lot of trust in a process that seems real whack when you start it. Like, when you first experience it, you're like, what kind of, weird darkness, black magic is this? Like, it just feels so
this
strange.
Must be a cult.
Yes. Because it is incredible how and when the representatives who are when you have more people in the constellation than just yourself who are allocated roles, how they can attune to what a person is actually like.
Yeah.
I actually spoke to one of the participants in my constellation a while after my first one that I did. And she had represented a family member for me. And when I asked her what that was like, she said that she'd been sitting there, and I'm sure you know this, Helen, because I've seen you experience a shift in yourself when you're asked to constellate. But she said that she was sitting there feeling really emotional about what was happening in my constellation. She was just really connected to the story and to everything that was going on. And then she was allocated to be someone. And as soon as that allocation happened, she became distant and disinterested and didn't want to be there anymore. And that wonderfully represented how the person that she was allocated would have responded in that moment.
Yeah.
And that was so, I had never experienced being someone that was a constellate at that point. Yeah. So I just could not believe that that was actually what had happened for her. And that kind of energetic shift can happen when we sit in an experience together
Mm.
and just connect with the energy that's a part of that.
It's extraordinary. I mean,
It
and I
is
think that
extraordinary.
was what I was so curious about when I came across it. Uh, and even though I understood this idea that we are, human beings that are very connected energetically, but I didn't really understand the power of actually being able to feel certain emotions and thoughts that then would potentially be corroborated by the person who knew that family and said, actually, yeah, this was what was going on at the time. Yes, this reflects how my mother or my father shows up. Like, that was like mind blowing to me. And I'm a very open person, and I was like, what is this? How can I delve into this more? And is this a piece that can be really transformative for addressing intergenerational trauma? Like,
Yeah.
like to me, that was like, wow, we can actually impact and heal across generations without those people being necessarily in the present. Like, to me, yeah, powerful.
That the other people in our world don't have to do any work.
Yeah.
Just by us sitting
Yes.
in that and doing the processing and the work, we can actually shift
Yes.
them and their experience as well.
Yes.
And they don't even have to know, well, they often don't know we did it.
Yeah.
I was actually drawn to the family constellation process. I'd already heard about it and was curious, but probably not really interested in partaking. I was sitting there on the sidelines until my daughter developed an eating disorder. And I started through my research in how to help her and my deep dives into understanding that, I started to get an inclination that actually they are quite intergenerational and that there's potentially a way that in each generation, the underlying challenges that tip over into eating disorder grow through the generations. And when I went back and kind of looked at my family, I could see how, yes, she was the one that had stepped into the eating disorder as the symptom of the challenges, but that each of us along the way behind her had symptoms as well. And they just grew and grew and grew as we moved through the generations.
Yeah.
And so when and I'm getting goosebumps talking about it actually, because then I started to think, okay, well, I don't want her child to be sicker than she is. I don't want her child to have symptoms more complex than hers. Like, what's next after this? So I thought, okay, I've heard about this modality. I might as well give it a crack. Like, I might as well see if I can do work on healing my inner challenges that created the symptoms that led to the actual behavior, and try and track that back through my generations and see if we can shift something. And I truly believe, and I know people might say that, I wanted to believe it, so of course I'm going to believe it, but I truly believe it has been a part of what has shifted for her, and it has definitely shifted things in me. And that meant that I could connect with her differently because I wasn't carrying and triggered by the same things that she was to the same degree that she was. So it meant that I could actually step alongside her and work on my relationship with her. And it has been through the strength of our connection and her seeing the value in herself, because I see the value in her, that she's started to take steps towards recovery. But the family constellation shifted those pieces is my belief.
That's really powerful. That's really powerful to hear that.
Mm.
And I think back to a recent workshop that I attended, and there was a man who wanted to constellate an issue in his life, and he's told the facilitator, look, I don't seem to feel like I'm going anywhere in my career. I feel like I'm not present. I'm not getting what I need. He just felt like he was floating, and he described that he had a tricky relationship with his mother. His father had passed away when he was a teenager, and so we didn't know too much, but he had some difficulties. And what transpired in the constellation was that the father died when he was very young, and it was in a tragic accident, and no one in the family really accepted the death. And he was the youngest of the three in the family, and he was closest to his father, and he felt very cheated by not being able to say goodbye to his father. But he got married, he had kids, he was in a relatively successful career. He was in construction, which was what his father did in his career. But in his line of work, it was about helping people to go beyond their limitations. So very much working on growth mindset, and supporting them. But in the constellation, what transpired was that the father, the person that represented the deceased father, the father had great difficulty in also wanting to let go, and the boy didn't want to let go of his father. And so you could see this tension, this limbo, that the boy was kind of half wanting his father to be alive, not wanting to die. The father being very, and again, if you're someone that believes has a faith in the spirit world, reincarnation, whatever you do, I mean, I'm very open to the spirit world. And you could see that part of the adult son's limbo in his life that was making it difficult to be present was very connected to him being in limbo, but his dad actually being gone. Yeah, like he struggled to accept his father's death. So he was kind of in this limbo, and he didn't realize this until it was shown to him. And that just brought so much catharsis for him, but it also helped him to realize, I have not been present with my own kids. I haven't, so whatever he was able to gain from that experience, that is going to have a knock-on effect in any relationship you have after that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you offer this kind of work alongside play therapy still is in your practice, or like, are you finding that people are very different, that kind of access different?
Yeah. So I'm not trained in family constellation. I've done informal learnings from the facilitators and the supervisors that I have been very fortunate to be, walking alongside with. And we have a family constellator, Devi Hernandez. But a lot of the therapists in the team have some knowledge and experience and training in working with family systems theory, and so for us, yes, we offer that through Devi, but we bring in aspects of this in our work with parents when they're coming in for their kids, and for us, it's about meeting where the parent is at, what are they open to? And for us, we are very clear about communicating that whatever is going on for your child is going to have some connection to what is also going on for you. You may not be aware of that, but if you're open to wanting to understand that so that you can support your child, then that's where we can start to bring in some ideas around, what is going on for you in those moments. So parents, I think definitely when we shifted from Play Therapy Hub to the Family Systems Hub, there was a big transition. Firstly, my team, we had a team of 10 or 12. Can't remember the time. This was in 2022. And because I had to change the model, because financially it wasn't viable, and I also was finding myself wanting to expand my services to want to make it more family centered, I lost 9 staff in that process, and that was a very challenging time to actually lose some amazing practitioners, and it really touched on my old abandonment wound. But I also knew that those people who decided to leave, and they also gave them the opportunity to do the thing that they really wanted to do, right? And so many of them stepped into their own private practice. Many of them realized that they really wanted to refocus on another part of their therapeutic work. So it was actually an opportunity, through that process. And so when that whole transition, when that took place, the people who stepped into my work were the people who were very open and passionate about working with parents, which is where I wanted to take the business. And that hasn't been easy either, because there's been some, parents who, yes, I want to be able to help my child. And then you talk about what that might entail. And I think that's what I was mentioning before, that can feel scary, because that can feel really scary about wanting to explore inward when you might not even realize there is something there.
Yeah, and I think as a parent, you probably are scared that it's placing some blame on yourself for what your child's going through. My daughter's autistic, and so we've experienced a lot of, play therapy and different therapies for her to help her and her deal with her emotions. And what's actually been the most beneficial for us has been examining us as parents. And but it's very vulnerable, and it has to be done in a way that you feel so safe as a parent, just to as a method of growth rather than feeling like you're to blame for your child's issues. Because it's awful when your child is so distressed and they're needing intervention at such a young age for their level of distress. You're already feeling so vulnerable, like, what have I done wrong for my child to be in this position? And but it's so important to kind of look back, but without that placing that blame on the parent. It's not
a blame game.
Not a blame game.
No.
It's just for everyone's growth. And my growth as a person has been because of my daughter.
Absolutely. I often say to parents, our kids are our teachers. They're another form of a teacher, really.
Absolutely.
And our journey as a parent is understanding or discovering what part of it is that we're seeking, that there's an invitation for us to reparent in ourselves. We may not take away the condition or the disability or whatever the issue is with our kids, but we can actually still grow and still work out what still trips us up in our parenting that has an effect on our relationship with ourselves, but also our relationship with our children. It's
yeah.
And
I think it's fair to say that as a parent who's had children that have gone to therapy and that have really struggled with things, there is absolutely a part of me that at times has wanted to hand my children over and have them just be sorted out by somebody else. I'm exhausted. It's hard to get through the day. Why would I also want to do my own work? Why would I also want to come in and have to be a part of this? So for a lot of parents, they're just surviving for parts of this challenge as well. But the only constant is change. And where a parent is at in their journey will shift. We won't always be as exhausted as we might feel right now. And there will be opportunities when we have the energy for it to step into things that can support us as parents.
Yes.
But we also, it's okay to know where we are and what capacity we have and name that with the people that are supporting us and our children.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think that there is a readiness in us, and there is a timing in us, and respecting that, and at the same time continuing to plant seeds. And I believe everything serves, like I don't think that what I've done previously was a waste of time. It wasn't a waste of time. It was what I needed at that time. It's what helped. And now I look back and I go, all of that was really useful and important. And now I'm at a different stage in my journey as a parent or as a therapist. And now I want to delve a bit deeper, And so, yeah, everything serves, really.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because what that just brought up for me was this idea. I used to need to be really, really busy to keep everything going, keep everyone going, like have all the things happening at once. All the balls were in the air. All of them felt breakable. And there was nothing that I could let myself just step back and be in that didn't have, as, potentially I couldn't see the purpose, or I couldn't see what. And it was interesting when I started to be able to shift that for me. The hobby, I guess, that I stepped into was paint by numbers, which is odd. Yes, I know. But what it did for me was, because I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, so I could follow the number directions and at the end have created something that looked pretty good, that I would never have created on my own, left to my own creative devices. But it allowed me to sit in the kind of the doing nothing, but doing something. And at the end, satisfied my need to have an outcome, even if that outcome just sat there for a couple of days while I looked at it and went, oh, that's good, and then put it away in a cupboard, never to look at it again. But sometimes it's about noticing just the tiny little opportunities, isn't it? About, I can just try that little thing, or it's okay if I'm being drawn to this, perhaps there's a reason for that, and it's okay for me to just sit in that. And often that comes up in themes of shows we might be watching or activities that we're involved in. At the moment, I'm obsessed with a parenting TV series that I think is really, really old, and I'm probably way behind. I often am in trendy TV shows, but I'm completely obsessed with it. And I was finding myself being like, why do I just want to watch it all the time, which is unlike me to want to sit down and watch. And I'm watching it, it's like 45-minute episodes, but I'll eat my lunch in front of it and only watch for 20 minutes and then move on and do something else. I'm watching these episodes in 20-minute snippets. I was like, this is so strange. Like, why am I being drawn to do this? And for a second, I caught myself and thought, okay, I could judge myself right now and be like, Kate, come on, like, don't sit in front of the TV for 20 minutes to eat your lunch. Like, sit outside, or, there were so many judgments I could make. And then I thought, no, actually, I'm just really curious about what's going on here for me. And there's definitely something around me wanting to observe challenges in other families and wanting to sit in their challenges and experience that through their lens to help me integrate all of the challenges and struggles that I've been experiencing in my family. So often these things kind of pop up and we can judge them and shut them down. But curiosity is really an interesting lens.
Yeah. And also, as I was hearing you share that, what came to my mind was values, your priorities, right? That your current or one of your highest priorities is family, parenting, relationships, not only maybe in the work that you do, but where you are right now in your life, and how that is also affecting and influencing what you then do in the world, like this podcast, what we're talking about. So there is something that's feeding you, that you're wanting to put energy in, that actually highlights by what you're doing. And yeah, it is very easy for us to go, I shouldn't really be eating and watching. I should be mindfully eating and savoring the taste of this food, and being grateful, being outside and all of that. Yeah, yes, you can do that, and you will do that. But right now you're digging this TV show because this is fuel. This is something that's bigger than just the TV show for you. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just those little seemingly insignificant things, but if there's things going on in the background and you're doing a lot of work, or sometimes it's just one little thing that you can get from something seemingly insignificant like a TV show that you watch your lunch in front of, that can change the trajectory.
Absolutely. And I also think if you are truly present and aware of yourself, that you can even, observe your own self and why you're doing what you're doing. And if you can then get clear whether, is this an avoidance thing? Or actually, is this something that is really important, and it's feeding me, and it's feeding something bigger than me that I'm wanting to pursue, and I'm choosing to want to do this. You can tell when it's something feels like an avoidance, or when it's something that you truly want to put energy in. That's my belief, really.
Yeah, and my new perspective on avoidance is curiosity.
Yeah.
Because I used to give myself such a hard time about the things that I could see were avoidance.
Yes.
And now I just think, okay, that's really interesting. What are you avoiding? Why?
Yeah.
And what do we need to shift to be able to make it more possible if it's actually something you really want to be doing? Because maybe you're avoiding it because it's the wrong path.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's not something that's really on your highest, your hierarchy of what you want to be putting energy in terms of your priorities, because they do shift and change as we do, right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, what's that thing that's on the to-do list that you keep moving day after day after day?
Yeah.
Because you just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then you can either give yourself a hard time about, oh gosh, I just really need to do that task, or question, do I? Is that something I could actually delegate, dump, do?
Yeah.
What actually needs to happen with that task?
Yeah.
And the amount of times I have a task that follows me for weeks.
Yes.
And it's when I start moving it, because I keep my to-do list in my calendar in my phone. And usually at the end of every day, I go through and move anything that I haven't done to tomorrow. And I can do that for weeks with a task. And then when that task starts getting moved a week away, because I go, there's no point moving it every day for the next week. I might as well just move it to the end of the week. And then when I get to it again, I go, and I'll just move it for another whole week, or maybe a month this time. Yes. That's when I stop and notice it and go, what is this task?
Yes.
And if I can move it for months without doing it, how important could it possibly be? So perhaps now's the time to hit delete.
Yeah. Or delegate, like you said. Exactly.
Or delegate.
Right? What is it about wanting to carry? Yeah. What is it about us wanting to carry this when we don't need to carry it? Yes. And is that, can that also be something that is an unconscious strategy of ours that has us circling in our mind, I need to do that, so they were kind of thinking either in the future or thinking in the past. So it just, again, a strategy of ours of not being present, just being here. I am a list person. I love lists and lists and lists. Like, that's really, it's how I go about organizing my world. And I recognize too, growing up, my mother was a very busy woman. She took care of the house. She was great at keeping the house clean and ordered, and yeah, she was busy, and she was often the last person to come to the dinner table. And I realized that that was also a pattern that I carried, you know, growing. I remember being pregnant with my daughter Farah, and I was still completing my diploma in counseling. I was setting up my private business. I was busy, so
Yeah.
busy, you know. And again, it's not good or bad, but I'm aware of the fact that how easy it was for me to move in that space of just constantly doing the next thing, thinking about the future. Like that was a constant way of being in the world for me. And
Yeah.
it's taken years. It's taken lots of kind of introspection. It's taken mindfulness practices. And even to this day, you know, I find it hard. I find it really hard to be without an outcome, without there being an outcome for me to kind of want to complete, you know.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like the challenge and the pressure of needing to complete something gives the drive to then be doing it. And as
Yes.
soon as it starts to feel like there isn't an outcome, it's like, well, then what am I even doing
Yeah.
this for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually enrolled in a diploma of counselling at the moment that I've been
Hi.
enrolled in for 2 years and I haven't touched. And I've spent a lot of money on this course that's about to expire. And yeah, it just keeps, and I don't know what the block is. And, you know, Kate gave me permission. It's okay. You can drop it. You don't have to do it. And then it's like, oh, but
Yeah.
what drew me to it in the first place? Why am I preventing myself from doing it? Why am I now doing a podcast instead of my
Mm,
coursework?
mm,
Yeah, it's really interesting kind of exploring, and I still haven't come to a decision yet, but
mm,
yeah, exploring yeah, why does it keep getting moved to the end of next month's to-do
mm,
list?
mm,
Or yeah, is it my fear of doing it, the fear of the unknown, or is it maybe that it's not the right path?
mm, mm.
Yeah. It's,
As you were sharing that, Emily, again, because we were just talking about values before, but it brings me to this idea again about our way of being in the world. And Dr. John Demartini, he's another mentor of mine that I have studied um, his way of synthesizing the laws of the universe and how we are as humans and what we do. And it's so interesting. He's really fascinating to kind of to follow. And he talks a lot about values, and he talks about the fact that your life or our life demonstrates what is truly most important to us. It's not about what we want to do or what we should do, but actually, if you look and made an assessment of right now what you do and identified whether like what you spend your money on, what do you think about the most, what does your house represent, what are things closest to you in terms of objects, all of that demonstrates what is truly important to you, and it's generally your top 3 and 4. And so there's a difference between what you think you want to do and what you're actually doing, you know. And I find that really helpful. And I also find it helpful when he talks about if you are engaged in something or you're doing something, it's not really energizing you, you're not really completing it, you either drop it or you link it to what's most important to you. Because if you can link it to what's most important to you, then you can see the bigger picture as to why you're doing it. But if you don't, drop it. It's just like, that's not, yeah, it's not what's serving you right now is what's most important.
mm,
And
yeah.
the power of the shoulds.
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm thinking a lot about what Helen's saying to you, Emily, without wanting to like turn this into an let's out Emily session. I you know,
Sorry, Emily.
That's all right. There's a few episodes that it's welcome to Emily's therapy session. So why not another one?
It's interesting that we can should ourselves about, you know, particular jobs or things that we have the capability of doing. So you know, I might know a lot about a particular industry, and so I think that that's where I'm supposed to work or spend my time or study or whatever. And anything that's outside of that, even though I might enjoy it more, I think, but it's a waste of my, you know, maybe I'm actually supposed to use my brain in this particular way. And we can should ourselves about forming a life for us that's actually not quite aligned to what we actually love.
Yeah.
Like, how many people, I wonder, that I always think, I have a cousin who did incredibly well at her like year 12, at the end of year 12. She got this incredible score. She was like dux of her class. And she had always wanted to be a physio. And then when she got this incredible score, everyone was like, you can't get like 98% and go and do physio. Like that's a doctor or a lawyer or a, like, you know, you can do any course you want because you got the ATAR to do these incredible things. And so she went, okay, yeah, I think everyone's probably right. I can't waste my brain. I'll go and be a lawyer. And so she joined uni and got into law and did like one semester and then went, I hate this. Like, I hate learning about this. I don't want to spend my life doing this. And so she dropped out and joined physio, and she's an incredible physio now. And don't get me wrong, physios are still really smart people. Like, that's not what I'm saying here. Physio is not a waste of smarts. But it was, you know, sometimes that can become our life, and we can end up on a trajectory that sometimes feels really misaligned purely because of a should way, way back that we're not even aware is kind of following us and pushing us along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that shows up in every aspect of life, I think, you know, whether it's in your own intimate relationship, how a relationship should be, or how I should show up, how I need to be that perfect parent, or how I need to be constantly attuned, or I need to be, you know, constantly striving as a therapist or a businesswoman. There's those expectations. Sometimes expectations are helpful. They are, but most of them are often unrealistic.
Our capacity to should ourselves is incredibly strong, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even once you are aware of that and can see it as a should, and I've done a lot of work on identifying and noticing shoulds, it still gets you.
Of course. Yeah, it sure does. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's especially, you know, like I'm 45 and I think about some of the shoulds I carry about, you know, as a businesswoman, you know, where I need to be, and or how do I show up to my 10-year-old daughter when she's going through, you know, she's having a tantrum, or not even a tantrum, she's having a meltdown, and how do I, you know, how I show up, and how I need to be finding a way to be this co-regulator. And there's times when I'm like, gosh, you know, even though I know parenting is messy, and even though for most of the time I'm doing a good enough job, I'm doing quite well, but that voice that says, you should know how to do this by now consistently, you should know how to handle these, you should know what to say, you're a freaking therapist, for goodness sake, you should, you know, all of that. It's so tricky to quieten that voice. And I often wonder how connected that is to the belief I really internalized as a kid growing up. How I saw my father, I saw my mother go about their conflicts or go about their challenges at home, and how what they did, what they didn't do, what they did do, you know. Yeah, yeah. I wonder how deep that is, how deep that goes in that system, and then let alone my father's system and my mother's system. And they were migrants. They were migrants when they came to Australia. That was in late 70s, and coming from an Assyrian background, their English wasn't great, and what they had to prove to be able to be accepted in Melbourne, you know, and that constant having to prove and do, and how strong that is in my generation lines, you know.
Mm.
Oh gosh, there's so many. When you start to think about the pieces that feel so powerful within
Yeah.
and how that tracks
Mm.
in family,
Yeah.
you can see it. You can see the tracking, and that's confronting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Um, and overwhelming, you know.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming when you look at, yeah, how far back that goes. And here we are, you know, being really hard on ourselves around,
Yes, and yet
yeah.
so little of it, it's there because it's been there through all the generations.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
now, through consciousness, have an opportunity to notice it, give it a little bit more curiosity and appreciation, judge it a little less harshly than perhaps our ancestors did. Or maybe they didn't
Exactly.
even notice it because that was just a way of being, and so it didn't even
Yep.
exist for them. And we actually are bringing it to consciousness, which is incredibly powerful.
Yep. Oh, I've got
Yeah,
goosebumps as you were sharing that, you know, like what our role is. And again, just giving ourselves grace around that, we,
mm,
you know, um, that it each generation, I believe, especially as we're moving into more consciousness, we are going to have more of an expansion of our heart and mind, and be able to hopefully hold more curiosity and be more open to living our life that is um, more more towards what how we want to lead, not because how we're supposed to or should, or because of whatever might be impacting a bit. We live a bit more true to our own desires and potential.
mm. Yeah, and trust that, like we've found with this podcast, Emily, that when you step into something that feels right and lights you up and gives you energy to do it, that you will know that,
Yeah.
because it will fall into place. Things will start to feel aligned. You'll be surprised at the flow of it.
Mm,
And,
Yeah.
that does exist. And maybe it only exists in little pockets in our life. There might only be little pieces that we're doing that feel that, and other parts still feel really tricky and overwhelming
yeah.
and really hard. And one thing we talk about in like the family systems theory, which I like to put into my own world as well, is that, when there's a part that's doing quite well and feeling really great, there'll be a part that's really
Mm,
struggling.
mm,
And the yin and the yang of that, and the positive and negative energy and that exists within us, because we're
mm,
all beings of energy. So often as something starts to feel really good and go really well, something else will feel really, really hard
yeah.
as a complete contrast of that.
Mm,
And then we often get judgy and go, well, that hard thing, like that has to go. That's the wrong thing. I need to fight against that. Like I need to,
yeah.
but
Why does this
actually,
keep happening? You know, I thought I dealt
yeah,
with that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Do I have to do this again? And actually, often it's purely because there's this other piece. And if we can see them both as serving us to keep us nicely balanced, it
Mm,
changes the way we feel like we have to push against or create more of. Because sometimes we also go too hard on the thing we're loving doing,
yeah.
and that pushes it over into something that's not working anymore either, because we wanted more of that goodness and we went harder and harder on it. And then we tipped the scales
Yeah.
too far.
And I think that's what creates probably even more of that unnecessary suffering when we start to look at life, look at our relationships as either needing to be this or that, like I just want happiness. I just want harmony. I just want peace. And it's like, that is virtually impossible for us to be in that state. We can have moments of it. We will have moments of that. But to stay in that constant, I think that's what creates even more suffering in us, because we're chasing that. We're actually, it's like there is ugliness and beauty at the same time. It just depends on where you're looking, and also understanding that it coexists, because we can't just be one type of person. We can't just always be living in a state of kindness. I certainly am not always kind. I can be a real bitch sometimes. Like, my daughter makes sure she tells me that I can be mean, even though I don't think I'm being mean. But like, yeah, there's parts of me that shows up that isn't peaceful and loving and kind and generous and all of that. But there's other parts of me. And I think I over the last 2 years, I think when I've really embraced that has also been really helpful in helping to quieten the shoulds in me. Because I'm not always just this or that, because it's, that creates even more angst and dysregulation and unhappiness. So I have found more maybe an inner peace in me. Don't get me wrong, there's still times when I can move to the other side and go, oh, but I feel okay, more than okay at times, when I show those parts, that those parts show up, And the other thing that kind of comes up for me as I share that is, when growing up in my family system, my dad had very severe mental health issues. My mum was probably going through a nervous breakdown. She was married. After a year, they had me, and then my dad broke his back. So there was so much going on in my family. And there was a lot of violence in the household, and anger was very easily expressed in my household. It was like drinking water. You expressed your anger. It was all out. You didn't really hide it. And so, but as a child growing up, I found that really terrifying, And so there wasn't a space for me to express that anger. So as a survival mechanism, I, shoved it down. And my creative adjustment was to focus my attention on the adult, on the other, to make them okay, to be okay. Because if they were okay, and if I didn't, affect them too much, they would be a bit more even keeled. So I was very good at being the good daughter, the obedient child. But lo and behold, when when I found myself in adult relationships, when I found myself working as a play therapist with kids, what did I attract in my world? I attracted aggression. I attracted anger. I attracted a lot of that I found really difficult to be in relationship with. My own daughter, when she was born, I had her as a C-section, and when she came out, there was this almighty scream that came out of her that was like so piercingly loud, that my daughter way of being in the world is very spirited. Like she's big. So when she's upset, when she's happy. And so I often found myself confronted with, when aggression showed up, I would seek to kind of, like contain it, suppress it, not want to be around it. And it was only within me that I was like, okay, I need to, if I want to be okay with this in a way that I can see that aggression also has another side to it. It gives you force. It gives you the ability to execute things. It's the force in life where you go about things. Like there's a positiveness to aggression. But I needed to work on that. Like I needed to really find a way of how can I embody that in myself, so that if I can do that, then the outside world won't show me the extremeness of the aggression. It won't be so big. And that's what happens when you start to work on that part that you are most triggered by. What you see outside of yourself isn't as big. It isn't so potent. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to,
No, absolutely. I resonate with that. So my parenting experience has been very similar. Learning from my daughter, that I struggled with her big emotions and big expressions. And the reason that I probably have struggled with that is because I've never allowed myself to have them. And now working through that and allowing myself to have my own feelings, and knowing that I'm safe to express those, and it's hugely powerful.
And I think that's what I want to be imparting or sharing with parents who come and bring their kid, or they want some support. It's about recognizing, where are your edges, because we all have them. And they're not because you're a bad, shitty parent. It's because we all have them. Our parents couldn't give us everything that we needed. And they weren't supposed to anyway, really. Because if they did, then we wouldn't be on our path developing and growing and moving towards our potential. Because it's often what we didn't receive helps us focus on what we want to do in life. It's the voids in our life that give us more purpose. So, but if we can help them see that these edges that we have are actually a gift for our kids and the relationship that you want to foster. But it means moving through the muck. It means having to be in that uncomfortable.
Yeah. And as much as I wish away the challenges at times, why do I have to do all the work? Why do I always have to? Actually, I'm incredibly grateful for it in so many ways, because what else would I be doing with my time? And I wouldn't be, and I wouldn't have the level of growth that I would get to experience for myself, and the level that I believe I'm imparting on to my children.
And sometimes I have even said to myself in moments I don't want to grow anymore. I'm done.
I'm done. Yeah, I have definitely said that.
I've had my
that'll do now.
Exactly. Okay.
I'll stop here. Someone else, my children can do the next layer. I gotta leave something for the next generation.
So that still happens too. And then, that then goes, that moment goes, and then I'm back and going, okay, what do I need to do? It's just allowing ourselves that grace.
Yes. Oh, Helen, it has been such a delight, this conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and
Me too.
appreciate your time so much. It's been so beautiful to get to dive into this whole new layer with you today.
Thank
you. So
you.
if people want to find you, we'll put the links for your things on the bio of the podcast. But how do people go about finding you?
So they can visit our website, www.thefamilysystemshub.com. They will see that we've got a range of therapeutic offerings, from psychological astrology to family constellations to parent therapy, play therapy. So they can visit our website and see what they feel called to. That's the main way.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Helen.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real honor.
Helen.
Thanks,
it's been amazing. For more information on today's conversation and guest, head to the links provided in the description. Please like and subscribe to keep up to date with more content, and it helps us out with the algorithm too. Please seek professional help if anything mentioned in today's episode has raised questions or concerns.